Thursday night, one of the holiest nights across the year, in the holiest of lands. Karbala is electrified on the Thursday night. Everybody here is live, coming to the holy city of Karbala with their intentions, overlooking their occupations, dedicating their time, leaving their families, their friends, just to spend one night at the holy shrine of Imam Hussein and his brother Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. Scholars within Islam have highly recommended, by extracting the verses from the Holy Qur'an and traditions of Ahlul Bayt, highly recommend the visitation of the graves of awliya Allah, especially Prophet Muhammad and the Holy Prophet, the Prophet's household. Others, schools of thought within Islam, have looked down upon that act. Why and what are the reasons? This is why we have Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani, who has joined us tonight to discuss the importance of ziyarah and visiting graves within Islam. Respected viewers, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the 6th night of the holy month of Ramadan with me, your host Ahmed Ali, and Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani. Sayyidina, good night. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Allah yakhallikum. Now, Sayyidina, honestly, to spend one night in Karbala is amazing. But to spend a Thursday night in Karbala is going to the next level of wonders and marvelousness. But Karbala has a different vibe on Thursday nights. And a few nights ago, we began to mention, you know, if we want to look at how Allah is structured or how Allah came to be, we got to look at the pre-Islamic Arab era. Now, before I get to ask you any questions, I do advise dear viewers to send in your questions. To call for today is about ziyarah, the importance of ziyarah, and the first hour, 45 minutes to an hour, will be around the importance of ziyarah, and the last 20 to 30 minutes of the show will be dedicated to general Q&A with Dr. Sayyid Ammar. So do send in your questions throughout the show, whether general, but I do advise you to send in specifically about the importance of ziyarah. Sayyidina, now, was this a habit, visiting the graves? Was it a habit before Islam, during the Arab era, or not?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It certainly was a habit of the Arabs to remember their deceased ones. And you can find this very clearly within the Holy Qur'an. There's a chapter that I think all the viewers have probably memorized, let alone read in this holy month, and that is Surah Al-Takathur. And when you look at Surah Al-Takathur, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to that nascent community, and He's discussing the visitation of the graves that they perform at that time.
Yes.
This is one of the opinions that's given in relation to this particular ayah of the Holy Qur'an, where the surah begins, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhaakum al-Takathur, Hatta zurtumul maqabir. Your numbers have deceived you upon your visitation of the graves. Qabr, maqabir, qubur are all derivatives of our understanding of the grave and the graveyards. And so you find that what the Arabs used to do is they wanted to honor their dead. They would go to the graveyards, for example, in Mecca. And when they go to the graveyard in Mecca, they'd go and sit there, remember their dead, their kids would come with them. Virtually the most important members of the tribes would join them. But what began to happen was, instead of going to the graveyard to remember death, to remember how fickle this world is, how all of a sudden a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old or someone who you thought would live till their 70s dies in an accident at the age of 20, you know, reminders that death could come to us at any second, you find that they started to actually vie with each other who's got the more members buried in that tribe, in that graveyard, from those tribes. So you'd find these famous Arab tribes who would come towards the graveyards, and they would come towards the graveyards, they would be saying, well, that grave belongs to so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. The other tribe would hear them and say, well, we have 5 graves here. They would say, well, we have 7 there. They say, we would have 9 there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to this early community about their etiquettes when visiting the graveyard. Because I think virtually all the viewers here, at one stage or another, would have visited the graveyard.
Yes.
Either to visit one of the saints of God, a prophet of God, or to even visit their family members.
Yeah.
So what you find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم.
كلا سوف تعلمون.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that you people are going towards the graves. You're going with the intention to remember the possibility of a resurrection one day, of a day of accountability, a day where you're going to be questioned about all your acts. Or are you simply going there to start showing off with each other and priding?
Yeah.
And that's why the Qur'an says, ألهاكم التكاثر. Your numbers have now deviated you away from what should be the main intention behind a ziyarah of a graveyard. The ziyarah of someone's grave or the ziyarah of the graveyard should be a place of reflection, a place of contemplation.
Yes.
A place where people begin to ponder about the world that lies ahead of them and their actions and what they're going to leave behind. So yes, the Arabs would visit. And there was, one may argue, and some scholars have argued, a period where the ziyarah of the qubur was prohibited. Where they were told, listen, if this is the reason you're going to go to visit these graveyards, then don't go to the graveyards. But then we find later on that that has changed.
Now, just for the viewers who are wondering, what am I wearing today? It's called a dishdasha.
They're not the only ones who are wondering, you know,
wondering.
I'm wondering as well. But it looks good on you.
Thank you.
Mustard colored dishdasha, yeah.
Yeah, a bit mustard color, but it's a dishdasha, and normally what the pilgrims do, or what they wear on Thursday night, is to be comfortable, especially after iftar. They want to be comfortable, they don't want to be tight in
well, the amount that you eat in iftar, you definitely need to wear a dishdasha.
Yeah, so basically, I just had to wear loose clothes, and to show you what people wear on a regular Thursday night in Karbala. So it's basically a dishdasha. Sayyidina, now, back to the discussion.
Yeah, and the Arabs had clearly been told
Yeah.
that this isn't the reason you should go to the graveyard. When the Prophet Muhammad comes in, it's different.
Speaking of Prophet Muhammad, and yesterday you said how the Prophet, the Ahl Bayt, are role models for us. Now, did the Prophet visit the graves as well? And who did he visit?
Well, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family makes a clear statement where he says that there was a period in which the prohibition was there for visiting the graves. But now he encourages his community to go and visit the graves. And there are a number of reasons that this encouragement emerges because of. First and foremost, you have the graves of the holy personalities in Mecca and Medina. In Mecca, you have the grave of Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam.
Yes.
The Prophet, for example, his family members, they're in Mecca. So you have the famous graveyard in Mecca, Jannatul Mu'alla. Many times people, when they go on Hajj or Umrah, in Mecca, they want to go and visit some of the family of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So they'll go towards that Jannatul Mu'alla, and they'll go there and honor those members of the family of the Prophet that have passed away.
Yes.
Then, significantly in Medina, we have a colossal graveyard where the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family is known to have gone to visit. Not just visit, send his salams and actually talk to those people who have now passed away. And that famous graveyard in Medina, what's it called? It's called Jannatul Baqi'. Ahsant. The Baqi' cemetery.
Yes.
That Baqi' cemetery, originally full of lycium shawi trees, when they were removed and it was purchased, you found that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, made that the place for those people who had died from the community. If, for example, one of his daughters passed away, then she is to be buried there. If one of the daughters of the community passes away, she is to be buried there. If, for example, the martyrs from a battle, imagine when the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family goes to Medina, the battles of Islam and the battles against Islam have now begun. So the battle of Badr, for example, has begun. The battle of Uhud has begun. And you had martyrs from these battles, some of whom were buried at the actual place where they died on the battlefield. Then there were others who maybe had lived afterwards. They were buried in Jannatul Baqi'. If you go to Medina today, on your way to the mosque of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family, where that golden, where the green dome is, where that lovely area of the grave is, if you face it and it's to your left, if you look towards your right, you'll see Jannatul Baqi'. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us that were able to go and visit Jannatul Baqi'.
Inshallah.
Aisha narrates, she says, that one night I saw the Prophet leave the house in the middle of the night, so I decided to follow him to see where is he going at this time of night. She said, when I sneaked up upon him, he said to me, why are you here? What do you want? Why have you followed me? She said, I wanted to see where you go in the middle of the night. And he said to her that I come and send my regards to the people of Jannat al-Baqi', to those who are buried in Jannat al-Baqi'. Ahl al-Baqi', those who are buried in Jannat al-Baqi', occupied a prominent position because they were the early Muslims who were buried there. And so early on in the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, he wanted to encourage his companions that don't forget those who have passed away in your community. Especially those who have passed away in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qur'an says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءً. Do not count those who have died in the way of God as being dead. Rather, they are alive, receiving sustenance from their Lord. So when people ask, did the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his family ever go to the graveyard? Of course he went to the graveyard. Which graveyards? Jannat al-Baqi', clearly in the traditions, was a graveyard which he used to go to, he used to respect, and he used to honor. And the sadness of all sadnesses in the Muslim world today is the way we have destroyed Jannat al-Baqi'.
Yes.
As in when you look at Jannat al-Baqi''s photos from 150, 200 years back, we truly had the most beautiful cemetery in the world. You know, you've got great cemeteries in Brooklyn, great cemeteries in Buenos Aires, great cemeteries in London, great graveyards. But I tell you, Jannat al-Baqi' was truly a heavenly abode.
Wow.
Who's buried in Jannat al-Baqi' will give you an indication of why it was so revered. Yes. The Ottomans revered it. The Fatimids revered it. The others of the nations that had dominated and had empires in the religion of Islam had maintained it and had honored it and had gone to visit it. You see who's buried there? People like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family. People like Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. These are all the great grandsons of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family, who in 1925, the edifices that were erected on top of their graves were bombed. They were completely destroyed. I tell you, it's one of the blemishes in the history of this religion that we have no respect for those who died in the path of this religion. It's a disgrace.
It is.
And so you imagine the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family, in early Islam is going to this cemetery, reminding us of the importance of going to this cemetery. And now we have reached a situation where you go to that same Jannat al-Baqi', and I defy any of the listeners from all schools of Islam that if you want to go towards Jannat al-Baqi' in Hajj or Umrah, go there and you'll see people who will not let you go near the grave of Imam al-Hassan alayhi
That's
salam.
true, yes.
They will not let you go towards the grave of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq. Even let's say the Imams or the Fuqaha of other schools in Islam, Malik bin Anas, the famous person who the Maliki school is named after, Malik bin Anas has a grave in Jannat al-Baqi'. But if you go towards these graves, they'll say to you, these people are dead, there's no need to discuss them anymore.
Wow.
Send your salam and leave. You have al-Banin, the mother of Abu al-Fadl,
yes,
and the other 3 sons of Amir al-Mu'mineen, 4 sons who Imam Ali had at Karbala from al-Banin. She's buried over there as well.
Yes.
There are others. If you want other schools in Islam, for example, when Muawiyah purchased Jannat al-Baqi', originally there was a part which was attached to Jannat al-Baqi', not part of Jannat al-Baqi', it belonged to the Jews. Uthman bin Affan was buried there. Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan bought that area so Uthman would not be known as the Khalifa who's buried with the Jews. But even then, if those who revere Uthman bin Affan, even then when you go to Jannat al-Baqi', this is where Uthman's buried, okay, move on. That respect and reverence which the schools of Islam in their entirety used to all have for the graveyards, respect for those who have died, respect for the deceased, sadly, that has been missing for the last 100 years and hardly anyone has spoken about this.
Now you mentioned how a person can visit the graves, and you brought evidence from the Qur'an, but a lot of people, when they do visit the graves, they either pray by the grave or recite Qur'an. Has the Qur'an mentioned anything about people allowed to go and pray beside the graves?
The Qur'an has spoken about praying next to a grave. And I remember someone tried to use this ayah, Surah 9 verse 84 of the Holy Qur'an, in a debate with me, where they said that the Shia go and sit by the graves of their famous personalities, the members of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and they sit there and they pray.
Yes.
And we can't deny that. That now if you look, for example, in Karbala, there are many who you would agree are sitting by the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam.
Millions of
and they are praying by the grave.
Yes.
Now what if I was to tell you there's an ayah which says, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ.
Wow.
وَلَا تُصَلِّ
Do not pray.
على أحد منهم مات أبدا ولا تقم على قبره. Do not pray by those who have died, and do not stand by their grave. Now today in Karbala, all of us come to Imam al-Hussein's grave, and there are people, do you agree with me, they're praying there?
Of course.
There are people, do you agree with me, that they're standing next to the grave?
Of course.
Now, the Qur'an says, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ. Now, if someone threw that ayah on you, Hajj Ahmed, someone now, you're in a debate with someone, in your mustard-colored dishdasha.
Don't kill me.
You have someone who comes towards you and says to you, that in Surah 9 verse 84 of the Holy Qur'an, it says, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ. How would you answer them?
I mean, the first thing that I would say is look at the context of the ayah. No?
Exactly. Or finish the ayah off for me.
Exactly.
You see, it's easy for me to pick an ayah of the Holy Quran without finishing it.
Yes.
وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ إِنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ
Exactly.
وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. What does the Quran say? Quran says, do not pray by the graves. Don't stand by them. Whose graves? Those who disbelieved in Allah. وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Tell me, when I stand next to the grave of Imam al-Hussein or pray next to the grave of Imam al-Hussein, firstly, in my salah, I say clearly in my tashahhud, which every follower of the school of Ahlul Bayt says, Alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. That's number one. When we send our salutations to Imam al-Hussein, what do we say about him? أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت زكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله. When this ayah says ولا تصلي على أحد منهم مات أبدا ولا تقم على قبره إنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله وماتوا وهم فاسقون. Imam al-Hussein disbelieved in Allah?
Of course not.
Imam al-Hussein disbelieved in the message of his grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam al-Hussein died as an open transgressor. Therefore, when a person comes and today says that there's an ayah in the Quran that says وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ, do not stand by the grave.
Wow.
Yes, stand by the grave of a person who was the enemy of Rasulullah. You're absolutely right. I agree with you. Someone who disbelieved in God and openly transgressed. Okay, we see where you're coming from. But when it comes to, for example, the idea of I'm standing next to Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah.
Yes.
Imam al-Hussein, his ship is the ship of salvation. If I stand next to Imam al-Sadiq is the teacher of Abu Hanifa and Malik bin Anas. When I stand next to Imam al-Rida, the accolades of Imam al-Rida from other schools of Islam about what a great scholar he was. Therefore, those who come and tell you in the Quran, it says you cannot go and pray near a grave. Firstly, when I pray near that grave, I'm praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, I'm honoring the one who's buried in that grave. Thirdly, and this is a vital point before you continue. When they lead prayer in Mecca,
Yes.
are they praying near someone's grave?
Yes, they are.
Whose?
Ismail.
Ismail. That semicircle
Wow.
around the Kaaba, Ismail is buried there. Hajar is buried there. Let's say 70 prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are buried there. Can I not tell the person who's praying there, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ إِنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا? I say this is Nabi Ismail. I say that's Imam Hussein.
Wow.
Say that's Hajar. I say, for example, that's Sayyidah Khadija. And that's of the graves that at least we know about. Yep.
Now, we got one of the questions, since you mentioned from Toronto, Canada, where is the uncle of Rasulullah buried, Hamza?
Good question. Hamza is buried at the very place that he was martyred. Medina, in the area of Uhud, where the Battle of Uhud took place. Let's say in a bus journey, 15 minutes from the mosque of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam used to go and visit him every week.
Wow.
Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam not only used to go and visit Hamza, Sayyid al-Shuhada, whose body was mutilated by Muawiyah's mother Hind.
Wow.
Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam not only used to visit the grave of Hamza, she used to also collect that clay that surrounded his grave and make a sibha, the tasbih, the rosary bead,
wow,
of the clay that surrounded the grave of Hamza. Because the clay that surrounds the grave of a martyr has the effects to cure the human being.
Wow.
Cure in which sense? Not that I pick up a whole bag of clay and throw it in my mouth. No.
Of course.
Sprinkle a small amount, very small, into the water. And those who have had many an illness have been cured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the wasila of the clay of those whose grave was the grave of a martyr, whose clay was surrounding that. So Hamza, Sayyid al-Shuhada, he was buried there, and Fatima al-Zahra would go and visit. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, would say, don't just say that my uncle Hamza has died. I want you to all cry for him.
Wow.
Lament him. Don't just let his death just go like this. So yes, he's buried in the Uhud vicinity.
Now, another question that we got is, where are the first graves? Or what were the first graves? I know Hamza, according to Islam, but specifically, or generally, sorry, if you will, what were the first graves, or graveyards, if you will?
Well, the first of the graveyards, one may argue, is if those who know the whereabouts of the grave, well, Nabi Adam alayhi salam is buried where? Let me test you.
Najaf.
Excellent.
Okay, good.
Whenever we do ziyara of Imam Ali alayhi salam, we say salams to Amir al-Mu'mineen and salam to your neighbors, Adam and Nuh. Nabi Adam and Nabi Nuh are buried next to Imam Ali alayhi salam.
But weren't they giants?
They were giant, you know, that they're buried under the ground. You're talking 6 meters under the ground, and God knows how vast and wide the exact place where they're buried.
Yeah.
But it's in that area.
Yes.
Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam would tell his companions that this is the area where Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is buried. Where Nabi Adam is buried, where Nabi Nuh is buried. A bit further from there, some argue Nabi Hud and Nabi Salih are buried in which area? What's the largest graveyard in the Muslim world?
Kufa.
Wadi Salam.
Wadi Salam, yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So they're buried there. Then you've got other prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala maybe buried in Palestine. Others who may be buried in Egypt. Others we'll never know about, for we only know about 25 prophets of God.
Now, speaking of graves that we don't know about, Fatima al-Zahra, 1400 years later, no one knows where she's buried. Is there any significance to that? Why is that?
Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam died clearly in Sunni and Shia traditions, angry with those who she felt had usurped the rights of her husband, which was bestowed upon him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And we all know who they are.
And you could also type easily in Sahih al-Bukhari,
Yeah.
Fatima angry, and you will see the traditions.
Yes.
And she wanted to be buried secretly in the middle of the night.
Why?
She didn't want certain personalities to have the chance to even be near her grave or attend her funeral, to highlight the symbol of the oppression that she received.
Wow.
And that was meted out against her.
Yes.
Therefore, she was buried secretly in the night by Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and a few of the close Sahaba of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And that's why until today, nobody knows where Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam is buried. You can go anywhere in the world, ask any scholar. Some will say to you what? Jannat al-Baqi'. Some will say to you, for example, next to her father.
Isn't there a tradition specifically, like not specifically, but in terms of meter?
Ulama have given what could be. None have ever said categorically that this is the place where Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is buried. And I ask anyone, if Fatima al-Zahra died a natural death, why don't we know where she's buried? Especially Ahl al-Bayt, who focus so much
on the ziyarah of the grave.
on the ziyarah of visiting those who died in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it a coincidence, or did something happen in Islamic history where until today we don't know where the daughter of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, is buried? And that's for the viewers to go and discuss and examine what could be the potential reasons.
Now, another question that it's also crucial to bring up on tonight is the ziyaras. I think the ones you read, which ones have been specified by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam specifically for visiting graves?
Originally, the first of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, who people did not know where he was buried, was Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, for 92 years, nobody knew where he's buried. How many?
92.
From the year 40 after Hijrah till the year 132 after Hijrah, nobody knew where he's buried. Because the Khawarij, who had been part of the Battle of Nahrawan, those whose families survived it said, we will take Ali ibn Abi Talib's body out of the grave and burn it. I've read a tradition where Hajjaj bin Yusuf al-Thaqafi tried to take out 4,000 graves to find where Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam is buried.
Yes.
Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the Imams knew where he's buried. But the public wouldn't know because they wanted to burn his body. And those who say to me, why is his name not in the Qur'an? I say, imagine his name's not in the Qur'an and there were people who wanted to burn his body. What would have happened had his name been in the Qur'an?
Yes.
Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, you find that Imam Zayn al-Abidin takes Abu Hamza al-Thamali on one occasion. And he tells him, Abu Hamza, come with me. And they stand at this area and begin to recite a ziyarah. Abu Hamza asks him, who's buried here? He says to him, this is where Amir al-Mu'mineen is buried, but keep it a secret. It is not to be given in public. It was given out in public later on.
Yes.
From the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam onwards. The ziyaras, therefore, of the Imams began slowly from there. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, more so Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, began to teach us the ziyaras and how to recite the ziyarah for each of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Naturally, as these Imams would pass away, the Imam who would succeed them would provide us with another ziyarah, and you would find that these ziyaras would be compiled by the likes of Kaf'ami, by the likes of Ibn Tawus, by the likes of Shaykh al-Tusi. They would compile all of these ziyaras so that the followers of Ahlul Bayt, when they go on ziyarah, or they are far away. Imagine now, we have a viewer in London, and he looks at this wonderful site, Karbala al-Hussein, and he sees Abu Abdullah, he sees Abu Fadl, but he says, I want to be there, but I can't be there. You find Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam teaches his companions, go to the top of your house, face Abu Abdullah,
Yes.
and begin with your salutations. either from far or from near, you are able to do the ziyarah of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. And so the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they're the ones who collected these for us. And the companions in turn were the ones who protected them for us.
A question that we have from Lori Khadija Al-Hassan. She says, are you allowed, she's Ramadan Kareem from the USA, are we allowed to pray or visit the graves of our fathers who have passed away if they are not Muslim and when they die?
If your fathers are not Muslim but were good human beings, they weren't enemies of God, they were those who loved the creation of God, they were those who were good to other people of other faiths, then what's wrong? A person goes there and reads a prayer. The ayah said, yes, وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ إِنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. But if someone's father, someone's brought them up to have the best of principles and the best of manners, then why not pray for God's abundant mercy for all?
Now, one of the main argues that people have when coming to Karbala, when going to the grave of Prophet Muhammad or other just holy sites across the world, is the expenses. Right now travel is so expensive. Don't you agree? When someone wants to come here, he has to spend so much. Has to look for a hotel, for a good travel agent, and so on and so forth. So how could you address that?
Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam addresses this beautifully. No doubt it's expensive. No doubt any holiday is expensive.
Yes.
You know, many say when they come back from a holiday, they either have to work their socks off, or all they are scared about is the bills that are going to come.
Yes.
Any holiday you go on is expensive.
Yes.
But this is not a normal journey. This is a journey to the heavens. Therefore, when a person gains their wealth, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam has this fascinating supplication in honor of Zuwar al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam al-Sadiq recognizes and he says a beautiful line, اغفر لي ولإخواني وزوار قبر أبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام الذين أنفقوا أموالهم. Subhanallah. You think Ahlul Bayt don't know we're spending money to come and visit them? Many think that the Ahlul Bayt are not aware of how much hard work is required to earn that much money to come and visit them. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, no, no, no. Oh Allah, forgive me and my brothers and the Zuwar of Imam Hussein who have spent their wealth to come and visit Abu Abdullah. الَّذِينَ أَنفَقُوا أَمْوَالَهُم. And he even is asked by another companion, how many times should we visit Imam al-Hussein in a year? He says twice. He said, but what if I can't afford it? He said, then cut on some of your other expenses and save them for Abu Abdullah.
Wow.
So no doubt it's expensive, but I think if we are able to cut some of our other expenses, the same way sometimes we want to go on a nice resort holiday, or your friends are saying 7, 8, 10 of us are going to go on a holiday together, you're going to save up, make sure that you're going to lash out on that holiday, have a great time. Then for Karbala and visiting those who have given everything towards you, you'll find that Allah will give you so much more back in benefits.
Now, a lot of people also bring up the excuse, other than being expensive, a lot of people bring up the excuse of danger. You know, coming to Karbala might be dangerous, going to Samarra might be dangerous. Is it really dangerous to come to these areas?
Well, I think, firstly, it's not an excuse, it's a valid reason.
Yes.
I can understand where they're coming from when you're saying it's dangerous. Because in the media you hear about bomb blast after bomb blast, but they tend not to be in Najaf and Karbala.
Yes.
You'll hear in the north of Iraq, for example, people will hear, for example, about bomb blasts occurring there. But if you're looking at Najaf and Karbala, hardly ever. Not to say that 1 or 2 is not enough. That's saddening still. And even if we end up passing away here, we're better to pass away next to Abu than next to Abu Abdullah.
Exactly.
But Imam al-Sadiq again in that dua, اغفر لي ولإخواني وزوار قبر أبي عبد الله الذين أنفقوا أموالهم وأشخصوا أبدانهم, and they put their bodies in danger.
Wow.
Subhanallah. Muawiyah bin Wahab, he's the narrator of this. He says, I saw Imam al-Sadiq crying, reciting a dua for Zuwar al-Hussein, those who visit the graveyard of the grave of Imam al-Hussein. And you find that Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam says, "Oh Allah, forgive me, my brothers, and those who have visited Imam Hussein, who have spent their wealth and put their bodies in danger." Do you think that we are putting our bodies in danger? We're the first? Do you not know that in the time of Mutawakkil al-Abbasi, people's hands and feet, when you hear people saying, "Natika zahfan sayyidi," if they were able to, if they cut our hands and our feet, we'll crawl to Abu Abdullah. Believe you me, there were people whose hands and feet were cut because they were on their way to Abu Abdullah. And Imam As-Sadiq even highlights that visiting Abu Abdullah when it's going to be a difficult journey is highly rewarded in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, when we come to Karbala, sometimes I've met people, when we come with the group, you know, in Arba'een, with spiritual journeys, when we come, I met people, we walked from Najaf to Karbala. I've met people who've walked from Basra to Karbala.
From Kuwait to Karbala.
Kuwait to Karbala. I think one guy even cycled from Malaysia or the Philippines, or something like that. But that's a unique individual. You know, I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone. But if you're looking Basra and so on, that person's walked 16 days. Do you know what 16 days of walking is? Forget what it does to your ankles and knees. Trailer, truck, coach, lorry, food. Any of these could easily, at any second, have a bomb inside them. But that person comes confidently knowing, if my last act is walking to Ahlul Bayt,
wow, that's beautiful,
then it's better than my last act being an act in disobedience.
That's beautiful.
Or an act in frivolity. Or an act doing absolutely nothing. So Ahlul Bayt recognize that there is a danger. Mind you, some of the countries, some of the people from certain countries who tell me, you know what, I don't want to go ziyarah to Iraq because it's dangerous. When I hear about the countries they're living in, I'm like, you guys face danger every other day. So let not the danger affect you. Otherwise, when we ask ourselves the question, would I have been with Imam al-Hussein on the 10th of Muharram?
Wow.
Would I have been at Karbala on the 10th of Muharram? Well, here's your answer.
Yes.
Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam faced over 10,000 soldiers on the 10th of Muharram, and he had an army of around 100 maximum with his family members, just a bit over. Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Muslim bin Awsaja, John, Habib ibn Madahir, others, Anas, others such as Abis, others could have made the excuse that this is a journey fraught with danger. But then they stood with Abu Abdullah.
Yes.
And this could be a metaphor for where we would have been on the 10th of Muharram.
And hopefully we can, you know, to add that, hopefully we can be the ones that answer the call of Imam Hussein and be the ones that aid him. Just as specific, as small as a ziyarah to Hussein alayhi salam, as you mentioned. But a lot of people also mentioned that I don't feel like it's right now. The moment isn't for me to travel, to go to the ziyarah. I have commitments, I have this and that. How do you solve that?
Priorities.
Should we put that as the main priority?
You know, at the end of the day, have a balance. Where's the most exquisite resorts in the world today, Haj Ahmed? Help me. You are a person of exquisite taste and resorts. Where do people want to go? Maldives? Do the people want to go to Thailand? Do the people want to go Bora Bora? Do the people want to go, for example, to wherever the most exquisite places, parts of Greece, parts of Cyprus, parts of South America? Go there, enjoy. Make time for those who sacrificed everything to give you the principles that you have.
Yes.
You know, you want to go on a couple of family trips in the year. You want to chill. You want to go with a couple of friends trips. Do that. Buy a nice trip to Umrah. Mecca and Medina. Go on a trip to Karbala, a trip to Mashhad, a trip to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. I'm not saying a person should, you know, just pack their bags tomorrow and make the journey to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. What I'm saying is have a nice balance. And believe you me, the way some of us live in the Western world, we need a ziyarah urgently.
Yes.
Because some of us are so busy in our daily lives that our soul's battery is dying. You know the iPhone, me and you, when we're sitting and our iPhone's dying and we're going nuts. Where's the charger? Where's the battery? I need one urgently. Yes? Always We're looking for battery, we're looking for chargers, we're looking. Our soul requires a charger.
Yes. I like that very much.
Do you like that?
I love that example.
Do you like it? Do you really like it? Our souls require.
Don't kill me saying that.
A recharge of our batteries.
Yes.
My soul for sure. Yours, others. We need to sit somewhere where we can talk, but not our lips do the talking.
Our hearts.
Our hearts do the talking. You, oh Allah, know that I've come to visit one of your servants because I want to open up. I want to find peace in myself. This soul requires peace. This soul requires tranquility. This soul requires to taste the divine breath again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed His spirit into us. And we need to have that feeling again on a certain occasion.
Sorry to cut you off, but we do have a call from a brother. Salamun alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Salamun alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salamun alaikum. Welcome to Ramadan with Dr. Sayyid Ammar.
Brother Ahmed, assalamu alaikum.
Did we lose that?
I'm with you, I can hear you.
They can message the question in.
If you want, you can message your comment or the question in. But yes, Sayyidina, you were saying?
I was saying that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breathed His spirit into us,
Yes.
these are the places which take you to a bit of that feeling.
Yes.
When Allah in the Qur'an asked us, am I not your Lord? Before we were created, in the world of souls, we want to return back to that fervor, return back to that vibe once again. So let us try and return back to that, and the best of places is ziyarah. I'm sure you've read the tradition,
Which one?
which says looking at the Kaaba is ibadah.
Allah.
Looking at the Kaaba is ibadah is a message to all of us. That there are certain places just sitting and contemplating brings peace to an otherwise difficult life. There are people with mental illnesses. There are people with depression issues. There are people, and these have all got their different cures. But believe you me, Aba Abdullah is a hospital
Yes.
for the souls. The grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a hospital. Ahlul Bayt are a hospital for our souls, and the ziyarah towards them will help all of us. But secondly and vitally, our kids need to know their heritage.
Yes. That's vital.
Many of our kids will hear the stories in the lectures. Imam Hussein, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, Ali al-Akbar, Imam al-Kadhim. But have they seen the places?
Yes, let's take the call from Shabir Abbas. Salamun alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina.
Alhamdulillah, how are you? We lost that. We do encourage you to call again. We apologize for the technical issues that are going on. It's crowded. Maybe that's why the area in Karbala, in Iraq specifically.
Give the benefit of the doubt to the people of Iraq.
Yes, let's put that out there. When it's crowded in a specific area, the network isn't that great.
Yeah, give the benefit of the doubt.
So inshallah, we do apologize for that. Do call in or send in your comment or question. Now, Sayyidina, some people say that chapter 72 verse 18 of the Holy Qur'an, it says specifically that the mosques are specifically for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we find mosques with graves in them. How is that?
Firstly, yes, chapter 72 verse 18, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ
نعم.
فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا.
Ahada, exactly.
The mosques are for God. So don't call upon anyone besides God. Means don't go to these mosques and worship anyone besides Allah. And I don't think anyone comes here to Karbala to worship anyone besides Allah. Do you agree?
Yes.
We come here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be reminded of one of the great saints of God
Yes.
and the great scholars of this religion, the truthful piety
Yes.
of the martyrs of Karbala. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ does not in any way contradict what's happening here. If I come here and put a partner to Allah, that's shirk. If I go to any mosque and put up ibadah to Allah, that's shirk. There were some of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family, who had seen that the Christians in Africa had started to put partners to God. First, Mary and Jesus were servants of God, then son of God, then God, then the Trinity. Quran had made it clear, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ. If we don't take the fiqhi opinion about the masajid being the 7 areas of sujood, and take it that it refers to the masjid where we pray, where we prostrate, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ is clearly telling us the mosques are for Allah. None of us deny that these are the houses of Allah. Where in the Quran qualifies this ayah the story of Ashab al-Kahf? When Ashab al-Kahf, the companions of the cave, when the companions of the cave, you know, they went through quite a deep sleep.
Yes.
Nice metaphor for the day of judgment. And our long sleep. 300 years was theirs.
Wow.
They woke up. I don't need to repeat the story to the viewers. All the viewers know the story of the companions of the cave. The companions of the cave woke up. They realized they'd been asleep for 300 years. There were two groups of people who had now followed them, and they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cause them to now die. When God caused them to die, what then happened was that the Quran says one group said, "Ibnu alayhim bunyanan," build, erect an edifice over them.
Yes.
That's it. That's the way to remember them. قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا.
Wow.
Those who were victorious in the affair said, let's build a mosque on top of where the companions of the cave are buried. Had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seen this as being shirk, people being buried in a mosque, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have not allowed such an ayah to go without saying, but this is shirk or this is forbidden. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is there any mosque in Medina that has a personality buried inside it?
Yes.
Which one?
Masjid al-Nabawi.
Masjid al-Nabawi. Who's buried inside it?
Prophet
Muhammad is buried inside it.
And then
Abu Bakr and Umar are buried inside it. People are praying right next to them.
yes.
Dare I say, people are praying behind them. If a person now looks at the intention, could say, well, their intention, they said, أصلي صلاة الظهر قربة إلى الله. لأن المساجد لله.
Allah.
If I want to not give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm saying, why are they praying to people who are buried in a mosque?
Exactly.
Quran says, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Therefore, when it comes towards the story of Ashab al-Kahf, the story of Ashab al-Kahf teaches us that a mosque belongs to God, but there is no harm if the saints of God are buried in the mosque. Do those saints in that mosque help us remember Allah? Of course.
Of course.
أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة آتيت الزكاة أمرت بالمعروف نهيت عن المنكر أطعت الله ورسوله حتى آتاك
Yaqeen.
till death reached you. Yaqeen in this meaning is death. Therefore, when we come to these mosques, we clearly say that all praise is due to Allah, and we recognize the sacrifices of the servants of Allah.
Now, if we can take just a couple of minutes just to look at the holy shrine of Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, it's a beautiful view. The viewers did get a glimpse of it right now, but if we can get it back on the screen just for a few minutes to comment on it on Thursday night, 1 or 2 minutes, beautiful Sayyidina, we could take a look.
Yes, it's heavenly, it really is. And some people will say, why are these people rubbing their cheeks on that edifice?
Yes.
Imam al-Sadiq himself says, فَارْحَمْ تِلْكَ الْخُدُودِ الَّتِي تَقَلَّبُ عَلَى ضَرِيحِ أَبِي عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. Oh Allah, have mercy on the cheeks that rub themselves on the grave of Abu Abdullah.
Yes.
This is the words of Imam al-Sadiq, just in case there are people who are saying. Secondly, all of these recognize that these are the servants of Allah who have died in the way of Allah, and anyone who dies in the way of Allah is still alive, receiving sustenance. We know in our traditions, a person who's in barzakh can still come back,
Yes.
can help even family members, can visit them in their dreams, can talk to them if Allah grants permission, because that is the different definitions of rizq.
Yes.
And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all the viewers that one day, very soon,
Very soon.
they get to visit Abu Abdullah
Inshallah.
and get to visit Abu al-Fadl. And you don't need to fight people to come near the grave. Sit outside. And while you sit outside, open up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, Ya Allah, You know what concerns me in my heart. I have come to visit the grave of one of your servants, someone who you told us through your Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, Hussein is from me, and I am from Hussein. Allah loves the one who loves Hussein. And hopefully the viewers will get the chance very soon, inshallah.
Inshallah. And speaking of very soon, the viewers will get the chance, for we are going into a short break to leave them with the beautiful images of Karbala and what Karbala has to offer on Thursday nights. Absolutely beautiful, live. The vibe is beautiful here in Karbala. So to that break, do take the opportunity to send your salams to Imam Hussein and his brother Abul Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. And after the break, we'll have the general Q&A with Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani. So don't forget to send in your questions. I am receiving a lot of questions. So we'll prepare for a general Q&A. To that break, we'll be back. Respected viewers, welcome back. Hope you, inshallah, took the opportunity to send your salams to Imam Hussein and his little brother Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. Welcome back to the last portion of tonight's episode, the general Q&A with Dr. Sayyid Ammar Nakshawani. Sayyidina, welcome back.
Thank you.
Allah Yaslamkum. Now, inshallah, I'll try my best to go through all the questions that we have received. We have over 100 questions coming in today randomly. Hopefully we can choose which ones to ask. Now, beginning is Ismail Abbas. He says, hi, I am a Sunni and I believe in tawassul. Only the Wahhabis do not, or call it ashirk. Now, a question to add to that, do Sunnis visit graves, or is it only the Wahhabis?
I think Brother Ismail, his name is?
Ismail Abbas.
Brother Ismail is 100% right. Many of our brothers from Ahlul Sunnah have honored the graves of the great saints.
Yes.
If you go to Pakistan, for example, there are many of the great saints who have graves, edifices erected there, people who go there and send their salutations. And even I remember Egypt, which was predominantly Shafi'i, there's a famous Shafi'i text, شفاء السقام في زيارة خير الأنام, and that looks at how the ziyara of the greats brings a cure towards the people, and that's a Shafi'i text. And you have, for example, in Egypt, Imam al-Hussein's grave, Sayyidah Zainab's grave, Sayyidah Nafisa's grave, all of these great members of Ahlul Bayt who are honored by what was a predominantly Shafi'i community and school of law. So even in Medina, up until 100 years ago in Medina, people used to revere and honor the graves. And until today, you'll find that there are many Muslims around the world. Sadly, that particular interpretation of Islam is the only one that emphasized that you should not revere the grave and the place where a holy personality has been buried, because they said people will go there and worship that person. And I don't think any of us worship that person in our communities at all.
Now we have another question. Assalamu alaikum Sayyidina. What should the intention be when visiting graves or doing ziyarah?
It's a great question. The first intention, no doubt, has to be for us to offer our thanks to that person who's buried in that grave. You know, sometimes people go to the grave of Imam Hussein, straight away they're like, Salaam alayka Abu Abdullah, could you do this for me? Could you do that for me? Ya Allah, please, 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 please. Before your hajat, say thank you for the sacrifice of that particular personality that allowed you to live the way that you live today in your life. When you go to visit Amir al-Mu'mineen, how many times have you gone there thinking, I want this, I want this, I want this, instead of just standing there and saying thank you? Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'alana min al-mutamassikeen biwilayat sayyidi wa mawlai Ali ibn Abi Talib. We should be thankful to Allah.
Yes.
Secondly, remind ourselves that death is just around the corner for all of us. I don't care how famous you are, how powerful you are, how wealthy you are, how educated you are, how connected you are. The most connected of the connected, the most powerful of the powerful, the most wealthy of the wealthy, and you found kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. At the end of the day, every soul will taste death. Pharaoh tasted death, everyone will taste death. The most powerful kingdoms face death, everyone will face death. This should be a reminder for all of us not to walk around and trample on people's rights.
Yes.
For there is a day we'll go under the ground, and a day we'll be resurrected and questioned about our behavior in this world.
Let's take a short phone call from Shabir Abbas. Thank you for trying in. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Sayyidina. This is Shabir Abbas from Amman, Jordan. My question is, when we are discussing the ziyarah of the Ma'sumin, I would like to flip the topic and ask about the Ma'sumin visiting their followers. Shukran.
Can you just repeat that?
Just a bit louder if you don't mind.
Yes. When we are discussing the ziyarah of the Ma'sumin, I would like to flip the topic and ask about the Ma'sumin visiting their followers.
Sure. Ahsant, Haji Shabir. May Allah bless you.
Thank you very much. May Allah bless you for that. Yes, Sayyidina.
It's a wonderful question.
Yes.
I visit Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Will he one day visit me?
Allah.
The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, his family is the first to say, whoever visits me, I'll visit them. When do we need Rasulullah to visit us?
In the grave.
On the day when our feet are slipping.
Yes.
We need the Holy Prophet's shafa'ah on that day. For example, when we're about to die, we want the imams to come and visit us just as that Sakrat al-Maut period is coming. That's when you want Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen to come and take your hands. Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Whoever visits me in my lifetime or after my death, I'll visit them. There is no doubt whatsoever that the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, if you visit them, they'll come and visit you at your most difficult moments.
Yes.
And when we come to discussing death in the future nights,
Inshallah.
we'll discuss that moment of the grave and barzakh and the groupings and the Day of Judgment. We'll see how the Ahlul Bayt will not let down their lovers and those who followed them in their most difficult moments.
And there's a famous line by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, whoever visits me, man zarani zurtu.
No doubt.
Walau kana fi
All
an-nar
the Imams of Ahlul Bayt will visit
Yes.
us.
Yes. Another question that we have is why... This question will raise other topics. Inshallah, we'll get to ask that when we are talking about death, as you mentioned. Another question that we have, you mentioned about a few nights ago, saying that the bodies are not buried in the actual graves.
No, they're buried in the grave. No one said they're not buried.
They're
They're buried
but
in the
taken
grave.
up.
Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam has a tradition
Yes.
where he is asked and he says that after 3 days of having been buried in that site, they are taken to the divine arsh. So, were they buried in these places? Yes, they were buried in these places.
But this person is saying, are they still there?
Are they still
And
there?
why were they risen?
Are they still there? In my discussion with one of the renowned scholars from Qom, we looked at a number of traditions which say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to preserve the honor of Al Muhammad. And you know, there are certain people out there who are crazy, maniacs, terrorists. They'll do anything to try and humiliate the message of Ahlul Bayt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show, you plan and we plan, we are the greatest of planners. Their bodies will be under the ground for 3 days, then they are taken towards the divine arsh.
Another question that we have, you mentioned homosexuality between men is mentioned in the Qur'an. Is there any mention of women, like lesbians, I'm guessing, in the Holy Quran, or fiqh?
There's a story about Ashab al-Ras.
Al-Ras?
Yes, they're a group of people, Ashab al-Rasi in the Quran. They're a group of people, and amongst the acts that are mentioned are that some members of their community were engaging in the same gender relations between women. Imam al-Sadiq has a whole discussion about how the Prophet who went to the people of the Ras was a Prophet who came to them and said to them that such an act is not acceptable within the religion. And if you go to our books of law, there are discussions concerning male-male relations and female-female relations.
Yes.
Both are discussed in the books of law. But the conditions for qualifying that a female-female relationship has taken place, you need 4 witnesses to have actually seen such an act take place. And where these 4 witnesses are going to come from who invade the people's privacy, I do not know. But even then, the doors of forgiveness should be open. People slip. There's confusion sometimes in people's lives. This is an issue in our communities. Because today it's become normal to say, well, I was just experimenting or I was just enjoying. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going towards that direction. And there are a number who are in such relationships in our communities. It's just that it's hidden from the general public. It's their private life. But in Islamic law, with the same laws applying about the 4 witnesses, then there are other questions. Are they married, not married, Muslim, non-Muslim? Is it the first time? Is it the 3rd time? Have they asked for forgiveness? Have they repented? All of these have to be taken account.
Another, they're requesting tips. Mohd Hafiz, he says, any study tips can you give us for university students? Quick tips.
Quick tips for university students?
It's exam time.
Yeah, quick tips for university students. You know what, as long as you know very well that you've given your all, then you should be proud of your result. But I would say, recite Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha for Al-Baneen, mother of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, just before you enter the exam. And hopefully that should get you 21.7 marks extra.
Inshallah, inshallah. Another question that we have is regarding, we only have 3 minutes left. The dish dash is looking fresh on TV.
Yeah, that mustard is made for a hot dog.
Is this mustard?
It's beautiful.
Anyways, is the saying authentic that Satan is chained during the month of Ramadan? And if yes, why are people sinning?
The saying is there in Al-Kafi
of
Shaykh Al-Kulaini, and it's there in Tahdhib Al-Ahkam.
Can I just mention something very quickly? A lot of people are baffled when you mention the sources, specific chapters, verses. You know, I see you, a lot of people are texting me. I'm baffled, my friends are baffled to see a non-Mu'ammam with tats and stuff mentioning this, you know? So yes, go back.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, I'd hope they'd be more concerned about what's my inner than my external.
Yes.
But no problem, you know, these are all the wonderful lessons of Ahl al-Bayt, and at the same time, Islam's an ocean.
Yes, it is.
And believe you me, the more you study, the more you realize you don't know anything. But in Al-Kafi of Shaykh Al-Kulaini and Tahdhib Al-Ahkam of Shaykh Al-Tusi, the tradition is there about the Satan being chained.
Yes.
Satan's being chained during the holy month of Ramadan. Someone says, why am I sinning? Someone like you who, you know, clearly is sinning a lot in the holy month of Ramadan.
Say it there.
Only joking.
Let's go there.
Someone is going to ask that question. Sins aren't just because of shaitan, my dear brother Ahmed. Sometimes it's our own volition, it's our own choice. Shaitan himself says on the day of judgment, don't blame me, blame yourselves. I invited you, you chose. Now if shaitan is locked up, then I have my own decisions. Say shaitan is locked up, that doesn't necessarily mean, of course, shaitan has no effect on us.
Yes.
But means the presence of shaitan would be less because it's a month of discipline, a month we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a month of taqwa. The hadith is there. But let's try our hardest that irrespective of whether shaitan is there or not, let's try our hardest to try and discipline ourselves, which I know many of us are doing very well on.
Now, another question that we have, it's repetitive, they keep on messaging. Who's the oldest lady or Prophet's wife is the oldest, and which companion is the oldest as well?
Oldest wife of the Holy Prophet, meaning the oldest to have stayed alive after him, is Salama.
After the martyrdom of Imam Hussein?
After the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. The oldest companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, his family, is Abu Tufail. Abu Tufail, who was of the lovers of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam, later gets viciously abused and attacked in hadith circles simply because he's loyal to Ahl al-Bayt's message. Yeah, Abu Tufail is the oldest companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon his family. Lived, I think, towards 100 after Hijrah. Yeah.
So he exceeded Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari.
Yep, he exceeds Jabir, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, towards 100 after Hijrah.
So another question that we have, Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi al Munkar. What is the concept of this in Islam? You said that if anyone doing anything wrong in private or we have gay colleagues, we should give them the respect, and is this none of our business? So why we have the Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi an Munkar?
Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi an Munkar is an order in the Qur'an where Allah says the best of nations were you who enjoined the good and forbid the evil. But there are conditions to enjoining the good and to forbidding the evil. And amongst those conditions of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil is that, number one, I preach that which I am practicing. I can't enjoin the good and forbid the evil when I am not doing the things which I'm telling others to do. Number two, that I know what I'm talking about. There are certain people who'll come and tell you, you know what you've got there on your hands is haram. And then when they go to their maraja, the maraja says halal. And then they'll keep emailing in and texting in and emailing in and texting in. It's not allowed, it is allowed. Don't do Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar in an area that you don't know anything about. But should Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar be done? Yes, but do it to people who actually it can affect. And not to people who told Nabi Nuh alayhi salam, we'll put our fingers in our ears and we'll cover ourselves with our clothing and we won't listen to a word you say.
Now, Sayyidina, we do thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Tonight's topic was very nice, especially on a
God
Thursday
bless
night.
You. Thank you.
Importance of Ziyarah. We do thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
Once
you
again,
so much.
Respected viewers, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully we can benefit from tonight's topic. coming to Karbala, importance of ziyarah. Hopefully, Sayyid Ammar motivated you and influenced you in a good way to come to the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein and the holy sites around the world. Thank you very much once again. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sayyidina.